When you don't vote, you help create a world that's the opposite of the one you want to live in and lose out on the opportunity to protect that future for generations to come.
In the months following what I'm only allowed to describe as the most fair, transparent, and legitimate election of all time, democracy, and therefore suffrage itself, has gained new attention. It's been a perennial topic in American politics as any and all requirements for voting present opportunities for proponents of direct democracy to cry voter suppression. And they say that as if it were a bad thing. I can concede that there are distinct scenarios where you might put something to a vote, like where to eat or what to eat. And in these apolitical scenarios, there are opportunities for peaceful alternatives. Should the majority force themselves on the minority, then the majority has formed a state or government, or maybe you prefer to think of it as a sub-state, for those purposes. So although there may be nothing essentially wrong with democracy, proponents of democracy are, without exception, advocates and defenders of the moral principle enshrined in gang rapes and lynchings. When they defend democracy, unless anyone is willing to produce some counterexamples, they are defending governments that use suffrage to make certain decisions, not as a simple recognition of the general, perhaps utilitarian preference for simply more people getting their way. So the voter is telling you that it is their intention to express their will such that a terrorist monopoly will impose that will upon others for them. It is the outsourcing of violence and coercion, and it allows the voter the advantages of violent savagery without the inconvenience of perpetrating it themselves. When a person tells you they are voting, this is what they are promising. Government interventions always create new barriers to forming high-trust communities, but suffrage itself too often escapes this criticism. And this is because the consequence of suffrage is that we are all turned against each other and at the level of our thoughts and feelings. These thoughts and feelings aren't harmful by themselves. I can hold the opinion indefinitely that it would be a really good idea to stab someone without ever acting on it or harming anyone. But to vote is to carry out your opinion regarding how much of a great idea it is to stab people into action. It does so in a way that is indirect enough to prevent the voter from having any responsibility. So in this way, a person who votes is comparable to someone who purchases a slave or hires a hitman. They weren't involved in the actual horrific business of conquer and enslavement or of murder, so they enjoy access to deceptively civil-looking slavery and murder practices. This is the nature of government, democracy, and suffrage. In the purest sense, it is the pursuit of hell on earth. And the various positions regarding these topics can only be distinguished through acknowledgement of one or another democratic evil paired with a method of placing a hard limit on said evils. Think of republicanism. Its entire stance is designed to produce the ill-gotten gains of mob savagery without letting things get too out of hand. And as we can see, that definitely worked very well and was a very smart idea. In fact, it's the best idea ever. Republicanism is almost as great among ideas as George Floyd is among black people. But don't worry, I said almost because I would never insult a dead person. So governments universally promote definitions of the term terrorism, as well as treason, which arbitrarily exclude themselves. It's far more common in libertarian circles to use the term terrorism the way that I've been using it for many years, and pointing out how blatantly stupid the statist variant of the term is. The unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. This definition of treason, the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign or overthrow the government, bears a similar exclusion. Though it's worth noting that other definition of treason, such as the act of betraying someone or something, those seem fine. So what if we defined everything else this way, though, the former way? Theft, rape, kidnapping, and murder are only theft, rape, kidnapping, and murder if you do so without the government's theft, rape, kidnapping, and or murder licenses. But more importantly, what does it mean when someone uses a definition like that? What it means is that they do in fact intend to steal, murder, kidnap, rape, and do terrorism. So now that we've cracked the code, let's decipher the Bill of Rights. We will censor you. We will choose your religion. We will disarm you. You will pay room, board, and college for soldiers. We don't need a warrant. Trials will be slowed, biased, and filled with anonymous accusers, and this represents your rights in their entirety. If the US Constitution were a party invite, it started out kind of normal, like, we invite everyone to our party at this time and place, and we will feed you, and was eventually amended to conclude, also, we definitely did not poison the Kool-Aid, nor will we drug you in any other way, and there will absolutely be no organ harvesting whatsoever, and the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Social contracts are always dumb, and even trying it is embarrassing. Many suggest that the Founding Fathers would be rolling in their graves if they could see the current state of things. I don't believe that. I believe that the original intention was to deceive, and therefore, based on my originalist interpretation of the Constitution, the American government cannot violate rights, period, no matter what it does. It's only a question of how long it takes for them to decide when they'd prefer tax livestock or a burger instead. Government is treason. It is the betrayal of one's countrymen, neighbors, friends, and family for personal gain. Suffrage is treason. It is an endorsement of terrorism which invites abuse and extortion into the lives of others under the pretense of civic duty. It creates dependency and resentment, and it weakens trust. Just as we ought to take the First Amendment as a promise from the government that it will silence whoever it feels like, to vote is to say, I want to see my neighbors extorted and terrorized because I want health care, because I want free daycare, because I want my hobbies subsidized. When a person tells you what they want to vote for, they are telling you what they are willing to have you killed for. They're telling you the price of their soul. They are announcing to the world that to them, treachery is virtue. Voters are traitors. Minarchists are communists. Michelle's a man, God's a woman, and this was an anti-social contract video. So let me know what you think, and have a nice day.
They need to understand that collectively we're the force to be reckoned with.
Less than 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. Look how far we've come from having no voice to being on the brink of making history.
Everybody knows this is history. A woman who's gotten this far in the candidacy.
My daughter and my girlfriend are the most important thing to me in the world, and I need them to see that.
I want my daughter to grow up seeing a woman lead our country.